What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show. Me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And we are back for the first betting show of the year in 2025. Although we've had another betting show, but that was kind of a look ahead. But the first betting show regular, let's say, of 2025. And as we come out from 2024, it was a pretty good year. If you haven't seen the recap podcast I did, please watch that, where I looked at the 5 bets I gave at the start of last year. I gave another 5 bets for next year, and I went over kind of my results from last year as well. So the overall last year was 108 of 201, 53.73%. And on that video as well, I gave like a whole rundown of all the bets. I kind of scroll through quickly, and you can pause wherever you want. And I'll try to keep as well a track of them this year as I did last year. It's not always that easy. I attempted to do it the year before and failed badly, but in 2024 I did do it. So I'll keep doing it this year, and it's good. Obviously, we've no bets to look over this week because this is the first event, obviously. But it's always nice to start every show by looking back at last week, because like a bit of accountability in the old betting isn't it doesn't go amiss. It probably should be that way, and everyone probably should be doing it, and I'm happy to do it as well. Last year I think it just turned out that we had a pretty good year. I'd be interested, and if anyone wants me to send them the data or anything, like the actual the actual money itself, would if you put 10 quid on every bet at the price, how much money would you come out on? If anyone's willing to do that, feel free to send me a message, and I'll email you all the prices. I have them right here in front of me. So, but generally, I think the prices that I give out are pretty good, and that will continue to be that way. Like as I said many times in this betting show, if you're new to it or haven't watched it yet, and welcome. I'm more the MMA side of the betting than the betting side of MMA. I want to put it that way. I like looking at the fights, looking at the fighters, watching tape, and I'm going, who do I think can win? Look at the price and go, who do I think? There's especially one fight today that I'm going to give you a bet for that I'm probably 50-50 on the price, but on the fight itself, but then the price, it sways me to give you the pick here. Like, whereas if I was given a pick, over in Severe May, we do our monthly picks for the pay-per-views, and my pick there might be very different to my betting pick based on price, and I suppose that's the one side of the betting aisle that I would stand on, I suppose. But that's what this show is all about, and it will continue to be that way, and a bit of fun as well as we go. So we have the Dern versus Ribas card this week, and next week we'll be back with we're actually going to have 2 betting shows next week, because I still have to review my picks for the champions for next year and give my picks for next from last year and give my picks for next year. And I was looking at them the other day, and I did really well in terms of the prices. Now, again, I know the lads did a similar podcast the other day here on Sherdog, but mine's obviously very different because it's betting oriented. So, as I said, double betting show next week, so I look forward to that. And then obviously we have the big PFL Champions Series card coming up as well in a couple of weeks. So a lot to get done. I was looking, there's a lot of UFC cards. I think they're only missing 1 week out of the next 6 or 7 anyway. So we have plenty of mixed martial arts to look forward to over the next while. And as always, please bet responsibly. If you haven't given a thumbs up yet or haven't subscribed yet here, it's free. Please do that. And leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know your bet for the week. Let me know if you think my bets are good or bad. And I'm always in the comment section there, and I'll reply to you, and we can have a bit of a chat there. So let's get to it, and let's talk about some of these bets. So I mentioned earlier about one of the bets that I said gone with a slightly better price. One of the bets I've gone with a slightly worse price, and I like to even them out. So my first bet is Amanda Ribas minus 198. So I don't like normally giving a 2-1 favorite, but I have given later on a plus 170 fighter. So it kind of evens itself out. They're not 100%, but we'll please allow me that for today. Plus, We'll talk about the Flyers when we get to it, but I've gone for a big Flyer this week. Anyway, first bet, Amanda Ribas minus 198 over McKinsey there, and I started the main event, the first main event of the year. I went back and I watched their first fight, and it came at a bit of a weird time in obviously in Mackenzie Dern's career, but in Amanda Ribas' career as well. Like, this was the first fight for Mackenzie Dern back after she just had her baby. It was the first fight as well after she had that wonderful submission, but that was kind of a knockout as well against her name is Amanda Bobby Brundage. That must be her marriage name. What was her name? Amanda Cooper at the time, ABC, which I think a lot of people looked at that, me included, and go, "Jeez, if Mackenzie Dern can fight like this again, if her hands are like this, we could have a real fighter in our hands." Excuse the pun. But I feel like since then, even okay, she lost to Ribas and they went down a 4-fight winning streak, and since then it's kind of been win one, lose one type of thing. I don't know if we've ever seen the dangerous, powerful striker that Mackenzie Dern looked like she could become on that night, right? There has been bits or pieces, and I'm sure if we went through back through all the different fights, you know, this one looked better than that one, looked better than this one. But I think a lot of the time since, she has been chasing that. You know, and it's funny, she didn't even get the knockout. Like, it was only a knockdown. But I feel like she's been chasing, what made me great on that night? What made that possible? And I don't think she's ever been able to recreate it. You know, she's been kind of in and out with Jason Prillo. I think he did very good things with her, but they haven't been together for the last few fights, I don't think. And I wonder if they had kept together and kept going, could maybe the increase in her ability technically have been put with a bit of power and made her a better fighter. And obviously we know, you know, I've been talking about Mackenzie Dern now for 3 or 4 minutes and haven't mentioned her jiu-jitsu, which is probably a weird thing for a lot of people to say. But if you go back and watch the first fight, it was all standing up, I believe. Did they go to the ground at all? I don't think they did. But having said that, right, that might be a positive or a negative, because you look at that fight, right, and that is the ultimate. She didn't do it, but I knocked someone out in the last fight. I'm going to try to knock him out again in this fight. A different opponent, of course, and she just couldn't do it. She was reaching for it, looking for it, and still and all, Ribas kind of only barely beat her type of thing. Now she did, and Dern couldn't really live with her. She couldn't land anything, and it was just kind of Ribas picking her off a little bit. Now, again, as I said, I think Dern has become a better technical fighter since, but she hasn't been able to recreate the power of that Amanda ABC fight. And I don't think she's been able to have a consistency level that would allow me to pick her in a fight like this. The thing about Ribas is she has been relatively inconsistent as well. But I think the only difference is the people she's been losing to, Rodriguez, Caitlin Carmenara, Macy Barber, and Rose Namajunas, can all do something to her, which I don't think Mackenzie Dern can. And that's, look, is it as simple as outstrike her? Or, you know, and I'd have to go back and watch the Rodriguez fight, but I out grapple her too. And when I say out grapple her, look, if it's a jiu-jitsu match, of course Mackenzie Dern, and actually it did hit the ground at one stage, thinking back actually in the first round, didn't it? And Ribas was grand. She survived it. But Mackenzie Dern's wrestling is just not good enough, right? It's just not good enough to make her jiu-jitsu a thing. And her striking isn't good enough to make it a certainty that she's going to win a fight standing up, whether technically or powerfully. And I think so we look at that fight versus this fight, right? Okay, why we look at it positively for Dern first, right? And then we'll get to why I'm looking at it negatively on her, and why the bet is going the other way. The betting tip is going the other way. Like, Mackenzie Dern, on her worst night, maybe, and it wasn't necessarily her worst night, she didn't fight that badly, but coming off of just having a baby, coming off of a fight where she brought the wrong attitude into the next one, she still wasn't that awful far away. So, you know, she's obviously back fighting regularly now. If she has a better game plan here, would she be able to make a few adjustments to win a fight? Maybe, right? But I look at it another way, is like, nobody has really been able to make adjustments to beat Amanda Ribas with a similar skill set to Mackenzie Dern since they fought. As I said, all the people I read out can do it in a different way to Mackenzie Dern. And that's really the reason why you pick Ribas. Has Ribas got a bit better as well? Probably a little bit. You know, she's added in, I think her cardio is good. She's added in a few finishes since then. She obviously got that spinning wheel kick one against Luana Pinheiro, although a different sort of matchup, I suppose you could say about that one. But I just think it's going to be another long fight, probably 5 rounds. I was looking at her to win by decision, and I'll talk about that in the end here in a second, but I just think the straight up price, you never know what Mackenzie Dern is going to turn up, but the more and more that Mackenzie Dern turns up, the more and more it's not like a positive Mackenzie Dern turning up, if that makes sense. So the first bet of the week is Amanda Ribas, just straight up price, -198. So there you go. There is the first bet of the week. The second bet of the week, I am going for Cesar Almeida, who's fighting Abdul Razak Al Hassan. And I'm going for him to get the knockout at +130. So he's a relatively big favorite in this fight. He's -270, but upwards of -300 in other places. You won't get him better than -270. And I it's funny, there's a lot of fighters who fought each other on this card, so it was an easy card for doing a bit of study on. But he fought Kopylov before, and we'll talk about Kopylov in a few minutes. But coming out from that, they're both, you know, also there's a lot of southpaws in this card, right? Both of them are southpaws, both very accurate. Kopylov was able to switch things up a little bit more and wrestled him a bit and was able to win the fight in that fashion. But watching that fight and watching other Almeida fights, he's obviously a very, very talented guy. And for them to put him in there against Kopylov in his second UFC fight, you know, and he'd won in the Contender Series after that, and a long wrestling background. I think at 36 years of age, they know what they're doing. They're pushing him into a place where, you know, he can succeed. Now, it's funny, you look at Razak Al Hassan, he's 39 years of age, but obviously he's been around for a lot longer and has been in the UFC, you know, since 2016, that famous Charlie Ward fight, and even a couple of fights in Bellator even before that. But look, he's a dangerous guy in the feet, a dangerous striker with a lot of KOs, you know, 12 wins, 12 knockouts. Only been knocked out once himself. But why am I giving him to lose via knockout? I think I'm giving him to lose via knockout here because I think Almeida is just going to be the more technical guy. And whenever a guy like Razak Al Hassan goes up against a technical guy, and I haven't looked through it a whole lot yet, but like, you look at a Jaquim Buckley, a Joe Pyfer, a Munir Lazzez, you know, even a Kalen Williams, maybe, they all beat him. And why did they beat him? Like, I guarantee if you go back and watch most of those fights, they either out-wrestled him or were better technical fighters than him and picked him off a little bit. And I think there's a bigger difference between a lot of those guys and Almeida in terms of how he will out-technique Al Hassan. Now, Al Hassan, again, and I actually think Al Hassan is not maybe given enough credit. He's a smart enough guy. He's a smart enough fighter. But there's going to be a stage, I think, where he gets a little bit frustrated. And the second he gets frustrated and loses the cool a little bit and goes at Almeida, that's when he's going to get picked off. That's when he's going to leave himself open. And that's when he's going to probably get hurt by one of those big, you know, those big backhand check left hooks or something like that, or you know, a check right hook from the on the way in type of thing. The body kicks of Almeida are really good as well, and plenty of leg kicks. And I think, you know, a guy like him who has obviously the one knockout in the UFC, went to decision last time, lost the decision to Kopylov before that. I think he will want to make a statement here. He needs to make a statement here. And I think I think he has the ability to do it, as they say in these parts. So, yeah, I'm going for Cesar Almeida. I'm going for him to get the knockout, and I think it could be a nasty one. I think that's the prediction here. a nasty knockout for Almeida. Right. Next bet is Santiago Ponzinibbio against Carlston Harris. And I'll be honest, this is not necessarily heart versus head, but it's Carlston Harris is one. And this is more, I'll be honest, this is more a Carlston Harris pick than a Ponzinibbio pick. Like for Ponzinibbio, first of all, look, he's 38 years of age, but I don't think he looked terrible against Salikov as a split decision. And I actually do think Salikov looks pretty good, to be honest, still. And he got a brilliant knockout the last time, big wheel kick. He's lost 4 of his last 5 has Ponzinibbio, but it's Salikov, Holland, Pereira, and Neal. There's no shame in any of that. Like, and he went to decision in all but one of them, and it was Kevin Holland knocked him out in the 3rd round. So, and in the middle of that, he beat Alex Morono, and these are all, Jeff Neal was in 2021, but 2 in 2022, 1 in 2023, 1 in 2024. Okay, he could be more active, absolutely, but he has been fighting, and he beat Baeza as well back in 2021. I think with Carlston Harris, sometimes he like Carlston Harris is one of those guys that I look at him and every time I and this is a mean thing to say, every time I watch him, like, how is this lad winning fights in the UFC? Because him beating him Kasanganai is one of those things that I'm like, how did that happen? How did it happen? And it's funny, like they're relatively similar in terms of how busy they've been keeping over the last while, and it's similar, Carlston Harris is 2-2 in his last 4. Okay, in his last, he's 1-3 in his last form. Is a Ponzinibbio, but relatively similar there. I just have a feeling, right? So if you look at Carlston Harris's record, and again, kind of split down the middle nearly by decisions and finishes. He's 11 decisions in his whole career, out of how many fights? Out of 25 fights, so 11 and 14 type of thing there. In terms of he's been finished 3 times, decision 3 times, 8 decisions, 5 knockouts, 5 submissions. There's kind of a smorgasbord of a lot of that there. When you're fighting a guy like Ponzinibbio, right, who is at a stage, I think, where he is a guy who hasn't had historically as many decisions, right? 60 knockouts, 6 submissions, been knocked out himself 4 times, and he's had 11 decisions, but if you look in his last few 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of his last 6 fights have all gone to a decision, and it's, as I said, how many? 11 in his whole career. That's awful top heavy. So what am I getting to here? What am I getting to? My suggestion is that Ponzinibbio is probably going to take it a little bit easier here. And when I say take it a little bit easier, I don't mean he's going to lay off or anything. I think he's going to watch his cardio a little bit. I think he's going to pick his shots. I think he's going to try to outpoint Harris. And don't get into a position against Carlston Harris where what he does and what does he do? He wins, right? Don't give him an opportunity to win. Just don't do it. Jab him up, push him against the cage, hold him against the cage, land your 1-2s, be defensively very good. Like as long as you do that, are defensively very good and control the fight. And I was going to say offensively there. Obviously, you'd want to control it offensively. I don't think Carlston Harris is going to Carlston Harris is tall and long, and he's a good jab. They're the same size, but I think he fights a little bit longer. That's the only other way, I think, right? That's the only other way I think he has a chance against Ponzinibbio. But I think if Ponzinibbio really, controls the fight, is very calm, I'm going to fight a 3-round fight here, I think he'll win that 3-round fight all day. I just think he's a better fighter. Again, he's older in his career than he, he's older than he was. He's 38 until he's 39. There's this old adage in the odd time I watch a bit of horse racing, you never see like a horse and like, oh, this lad won the Gold Cup, or this lad was second in the Grand National, or this lad, for the last 6 or 7 years, okay, maybe not the last 2 years, but he was historically. Those lads inevitably win, the old horse for the long road, and I'm gonna go with Ponzinibbio here, even though they're only a year in the difference. But Ponzinibbio has had the longer, more storied career at a higher echelon. Let's say that. So Ponzinibbio is the pick in that one over Carlston Harris, and that price is minus 125. Right, the bet I'm going for that. I honestly went back and forth on, and I'm going based on the price. I'm going to go for Punahele Soriano to beat Uros Medic, and he's plus 170. Now, the reason I'm going for this is I watched a couple of the fights of each of them, and I watched Uros Medic fighting. I think it was Morales, wasn't it? And Morales had fought at 145 before that. And, Medic won, and he dominated him somewhat. And then I watched Oral by fight, and look, we know what happened in that. Obviously, he got neck crank, he got taken down a few times. And it just felt like, right, the size and the strength was such a telling factor. And maybe I did this the wrong way around now, right? And maybe this is not the way you should have done it. But I'm thinking, if you're going from fighting a fella who's a 145er, and even before that, like Jalen Turner at welterweight, at a lightweight, as we know, up now at welterweight, and you're fighting a guy who's, been fighting obviously at middleweight for a long time in his career, fighting, Brendan Allen and Dusko Todorovic, big middleweights, right? Obviously back down at welterweight now for the last couple of fights, and looked good against Baeza, threw himself around. Watching that Baeza fight, it's very hard for me to look at that and go like, what's Punahele Soriano really good at? Historically, I suppose, landing that big, massive knockout blow. But what he did in that fight was use his size and his strength and his wrestling and took him down and beat him up from the start and through it. And look, Medic is no joke anywhere, but like he's a better striker, I suppose, than he is anything else. I would wonder whether Soriano will look at that last fight and go, I can do that again. And I would wonder if a guy like Medic, who has been fighting smaller guys, will struggle against a guy who's been fighting bigger guys. And I think the two things Soriano has, again, look, the power in his hands and the wrestling. I wonder, the wrestling has obviously been shown in the last fight to be very good. I wonder, will the power come down? Because if the power comes down with him, Soriano could make a good run here against some good guys. Because, like, that's, not to go back to, like, the Josh Koscheck days or anything, like, but wrestle boxers, like, if he turns, and I never thought he was going to be a wrestle boxer, but if he turns into that could be very, very useful. Now, Medic's a very good fighter and often looks good and destroyed Tim Means last time up, but where is Tim Means in his career? Again, if you were to give me a straight up pick, I might go with the technical game of Medic, but I do have a feeling that Soriano is going to get Tim at some stage, is going to get that takedown, and if he can bring the power with him and make Medic think about it a little bit and land a couple of those big right hands, could open up the takedowns and could make that win a little bit surer. But we'll wait and see on that one. It's a good fight, and I just think that price to me was just a little bit off at plus 170. So I'm going to go for Punahele Soriano at plus 170 in that one. Both southpaws as well. A lot of southpaws on this card. And right, we are at the Flyer of the week, and I'm going for a bit of a crazy one this week. I'm going for Kopylov to win by submission against Chris Curtis at plus 2,000. That's a big win. Now, he's never won by submission yet in his career. He's 16 fights into it. Chris Curtis has had 40 plus fights, and he's only lost by submission once in his career. So this is a wild one. It's a plus 2,000. But again, last year we had a terrible time with Flyers. A terrible time with Flyers. So, like, I'm starting it off. I'm going to give my 4 bets every week. We all know that. The 5th bet, what that is, it might change. Maybe we'll have a Flyer one week. Maybe we'll have a parlay next week. Maybe we'll go back to Flyer. Maybe something else. Maybe someone will give me an idea and I'll change it. But I want to get wild. If we're going for a Flyer, let's go for a Flyer, right? And okay, I have reasoning behind it at the same time, though. Last time out, I mentioned it earlier on, he fought Carlos Almeida, and I remember at the start of that fight, whoever was commentating on it, they were kind of mentioning, Kopylov has, obviously he's a very good striker, but against a guy like this, why would he not try to wrestle him? And he did wrestle him. He took him down. He did well. Now, he didn't end up obviously submitting him. He's never submitted anyone, but he did a great job with him on the ground. And my thoughts coming into this are, why wouldn't he do it again against someone like Chris Curtis? Now, Chris Curtis is a good fighter. He's not going to be as easy to take down, I don't think, as Cesar Almeida. But I would say the one thing about Chris Curtis is, I think against a guy like Kopylov, Chris Curtis, this is a tough thing to say, but he might be a bit too tough. Right, so Curtis had some tough fights over the last while. The Brendan Allen fight, lost to Kelvin Gastelum. He's got some good wins in there as well. Rodolfo Vieira, Shaquem Buckley, people forget that. Barrio. But I think Kopylov is a really good fighter. That, again, southpaw, that left hand is really good if he can land it. And he can put it on Chris Curtis. I feel like he might turn to that wrestler later in the fight this time. Let's say if he can't get Curtis out of there, but hurts him a few times throughout the fight. Right? And obviously this is a plus 2,000 flyer. It's a big one. It's a mad one. And we're looking for something. We're trying to find something. But I do, like, Kopylov, it's also one of those things that the facts of the matter have changed. Like, if people went down and listened to me talking about Kopylov wrestling, 6 months ago or a year ago, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Kopylov is a striker. But he wrestled a lot in the last fight. If he decides to wrestle again in this fight, and I know, okay, it's a different matchup. He was a fighting kickboxer last time out, but it was so successful. And he looked so good and he looked so clean and crisp doing it. I don't think that's just because he was fighting a kickboxer. I just think he is a good wrestler. That could pay off for him here. So plus 2,000, Roman Kopylov to get the submission in the flyer of the week. So yeah, those are the top 5 bets. Look at a couple of the other bets. Actually, we'll start at the main event. Ribas and Dern. Obviously, I gave you the minus 198. Dern is plus 164. Fight to go to a decision, minus 190 best price. I like that an awful lot. If you do fancy Dern to pull something out and maybe land her shots these times or maybe get a submission, plus 1,000 for the knockout for Dern, the submission, plus 500 best price. Other places plus 375 there and things. If you fancy Ribas though to get the knockout, best price plus 800, but around plus 600, plus 700 in other places as well. I think it's going to decision if I'm being honest. We talked about Almeida, obviously, and Razak Hassan. If you fancy Abdul in that one, plus 225, minus 270 for Almeida. If you fancy the Razak Hassan knockout, plus 350. So that's not a bad price if you fancy it. Not a bad price at all. Obviously, we talked a lot about Carlson Harris and Ponzinibbio. If you fancy the Harris knockout, if you don't like my bet, you can get that at plus 550, which I'll tell you is not a bad flyer either. That is not a bad flyer. Oh, I nearly changed my flyer to that. Imagine if I had 2 picks and both of them are different people. Like, I can't be doing that. But the over under is an interesting one. It's both minus 110, 2.5 rounds. I think if Ponzinibbio wins it, he'll win the decision. I think if Carlson Harris wins it, he'll win inside the distance. So, take from that what you may. The straight up price is Kopylov Curtis plus minus 250 for Kopylov Curtis plus 210, and that's just about right there. Look, obviously it's a flyer to go to submission. I think this fight will probably go a little bit longer. Fight goes to decision minus 172. That's a good price, to be honest. That is a pretty good price there. Soriano and Medic, we spoke about that. The fight goes to decision, plus 150. Interesting. I think that's probably the most likely. Let's see what the most likely finish is. Soriano knockout plus 450. Medic knockout plus 150. Wow. Submission, big money for both of them. Soriano plus 350 for the submission. Interesting. I don't know. Yeah, Medic is a very, very good striker. But as I said, Soriano can punch. He can hit. Maybe he's not as technical as him, but I think the wrestling, if he can, for Kopylov and Soriano, maybe I'm relying on the wrestling too much. Maybe it won't be as big of a factor, but we will see, I suppose. I was looking at Fallon McLean, but she's too big of a price. After the last performance, would you be betting on Fallon McLean at minus 1,000? Dudikova isn't amazing, but plus 650. No, I think Klein will win it, but probably avoid that one. Noral Liev is a big price to win over Joe Selecki's minus 530. Magomed Gadzilov is minus 225 against Bruno Lopez. Trey Ogden and Thiago Moises. The favourite is Moises at plus 180. And I think that's a good price as well, to be honest. I think he'll win that fight. And Poteria is fighting in. He's a big underdog against Marco Tulio Silva, who's minus 500. So you probably know where to bet when you're betting that one. All right, everybody. That is it. The 5 bets for the week. Ribas, minus 198. Almeida to win by knockout, plus 130. Ponzinibbio, minus 125. Soriano, plus 170. And Kopylov to get the submission at plus 2,000. All right. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com. Please bet responsibly. We'll see you all next time.